insight all the way from Japan. Now we move on to our next news. U.S. President Donald Trump has stepped in to mediate the growing tensions between Thailand and Cambodia once again. On Friday, Trump has held calls with representatives from both nations, a White House official has confirmed. The move comes after Thailand suspended a U.S.-brokered ceasefire deal, demanding an apology over allegations that Cambodia had planted new landmines, an accusation Cambodia denies. In addition to engaging with Thailand and Cambodia, Trump has also reached out to Malaysia, which is seen as playing a key role in the region's stability. The dispute centers on the allegations of landmine deployment, which have escalated the already fragile relations between Thailand and Cambodia. This diplomatic intervention marks another moment of U.S. involvement in Southeast Asian conflicts, underscoring America's role in regional peacekeeping efforts. Now for this discussion, we welcome Dr. Asta Chada. She's a Ritsumeikan University Associate Professor of International Relations, joins us live from Kyoto. Thank you very much, Professor and Dr. Asta Chada, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now,
good to see you too.
Thank you. Now looking at this, what political implications could arise if Thailand and Cambodia fail to resolve the landmine allegations? And do you think that U.S. involvement changes anything between them? And also, is there any risk of President Trump taking it on himself if these talks fail?
I mean, we know that for Southeast Asian security, the stakes are very, very high. And it is pertinent that Thailand and Cambodia do resolve this conflict, otherwise this whole issue, which is deeply rooted in colonial history and badly demarcated borders, this is going to just perpetuate itself, into further economic crisis, into further security chaos. This time I see that President Trump seems to be trying a two-pronged sort of an approach, right? He's trying to broker this peace one more time together with high-level personal diplomacy, meeting the leaders of both the sides, but also trying to coerce them in some way, saying that he might use tariffs against these states if they do derail one more time from this peace. So I mean, it's very obvious that for United States also, maintaining the peace, and specifically for President Trump himself, because he was the one that brokered the peace initially, or he tried to do that initially together with the Malaysian leader earlier. So there's a possibility that he might try to make that diplomatic sort of very direct diplomatic intervention. That's one. But it's also possible that he might this time employ more severely the economic tools that he has in his hands, and one of those is the tariffs. And then thirdly, I think he's going to try and probably this time also mediate using ASEAN frameworks. I'm looking at the previous time he tried to do it together with the Malaysian leader. It's very possible that he might want to include more ASEAN voices this time to make sure that the message drives home.
Yes, indeed. Building on that, Dr. Asta Chada, we already know that Trump has contacted or initiated conversations with Malaysia over this dispute. How do you think Malaysia's role is in this dispute between these two countries?
I mean, previously Malaysia's, I think Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim was engaged in making sure, that, I mean, Malaysia is an important ASEAN country. That's one.
Yes.
Two, I mean, given the proximity and given the fact that if any Southeast Asian conflict flares up, there are implications for the entire region. And number three, if you look at the ASEAN history in itself, they've tried to always prioritize ASEAN centrality, criticizes as much as we want to, but the truth is that any maintenance of peace and any such peace process needs to be done together with ASEAN consensus. And the engagement of Malaysia in that sense was seen as a very positive step, somebody from within the region who knows what the stakes are, because the United States is far off. It lends a heavier voice to the whole cause. But my understanding is probably looks like only Malaysian presence or only one state's ASEAN's presence in the entire ASEAN was not probably enough. I think more action is needed. We are looking at US as an external power What I see is needed is some more internal, ASEAN, some Southeast Asian neighbors, or probably even other countries like Japan, to step forward and make sure that these two countries do understand that they are very, very critical, not just to their own domestic economies, but to the wider region and the wider regional security. And hence, to avoid any such conflict, it's absolutely must that this time the peace that is brokered should be seen through a very non-interventionist lens, that
Yes.
external powers are not there to precisely, try and intervene or hurt their sovereignty in any way or try to make decisions for them. It has to come from within. But if it is, if it arises out of a strengthened ASEAN voice, I think that is likely to last longer.
Yes, and as you mentioned, last time in these between Thailand and Cambodia, we saw a lot less or almost none Asian, ASEAN leaders come in between these. We mostly saw U.S. Come and intervene between these two nations. Do you think ASEAN is keeping a distance on these topics or these kind of interventions because they're solely more focused on economical side of ASEAN nations in general?
Yeah, you made a very nice observation there. I mean, I was also pleasantly surprised when I did not see too much active participation. I mean, but we must understand, that calculated decision on behalf of ASEAN states comes from, like I said earlier, this very strong sense of sovereignty and strong sense of non-intervention that ASEAN states want to maintain. And even though United States, I mean, it is very critical. U.S. presence is seen as very critical to the region and the regional security. The sense that I got from that conflict and the way that peace was brokered was it was more centered on what US wants in the region rather than what the regional players would have wanted. I mean, of course, all of them are eventually looking at peace, but how they achieve that peace is probably, was probably seemed to have been more through an external power intervention rather than coming internally. But but I mean, we saw that it did not last very long, right? So
Yes.
there's a huge mistrust between those states in terms of any peace process. And like you were mentioning earlier, we do need more inclusion. We do need more voices from within ASEAN. And if not just ASEAN, maybe in the wider Asian region, it would be wonderful if countries like Japan, South Korea, India could step in and probably not direct in any way, but also step in and make sure and ensure that they emphasize enough that the peace between Thailand and Cambodia is very, very quintessential, not just to global trade, but to global security.
Yes, indeed, especially in that region. I wouldn't agree more 100%. Thank you very much, Dr. Asta Chadha, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion.